Joined by former PGA Tour winner, Canadian golf legend Richard Zokol. His new book, Zokology, Change Your Perspective, Not Your Swing, takes readers inside the mental and emotional journey of life on the PGA Tour, changing the way we can think about performance, both in sports and life. Richard, congratulations on the book.
Well, thank you very much. It's been 3 years of hard work, and I actually started to love doing it. It's kind of interesting. When I started on subjects, I would kind of open up these files in my mind, and then I couldn't stop writing about the stories predominantly that I had, and they're both good stories and bad stories, struggles that I've had myself personally as a journeyman on the PGA Tour and trying to figure this bloody game out.
The subtitle, Change Your Perspective, Not Your
Hmm.
Swing. You write openly about anxiety, self-doubt, the
Hmm.
mental goal of professional golf. Talk
Hmm.
about what the phrase means, and was it difficult for you to be that vulnerable in this book?
Well, no, I had no problem. I had no problem pointing kind of the microscope at myself. Like I had to go to the PGA Tour 5 times, meaning I failed 5 times to make the top 125. But I was able to get through the notorious PGA Tour qualifying school. I got through it successfully 5 times. And the whole notion of the book is Zokology, which is a bit of a play on words on with psychology in my last name. I always had a different perspective, and there was a great Canadian golf journalist named Lauren Rubenstein. Because I would come up with these terms, and they were different than conventional thinking. He called me Zokology because of how I would view things. And so by the end of towards the end of my career, or early in my career as well, that I found out this game is very psychological. I found that golfers typically aren't taught how to think properly. No one's given you a manual. There's manuals for golf swings, and everyone is teaching golf swings. But what I found out more and large, those people that teach golf are actually people who have washed out at playing golf. So the default within the industry is to teach golf swing. If I hit a bad shot on the golf course, therefore I must go fix my golf swing. Well, it was probably something psychological. If you go, don't hit it in the water, and you hit it in the water, that's a psychological problem because of the way you're thinking. And so the aspects of Zokology is filling the gap in golf performance that revolves around performance anxiety. So no one's dealing with this, or very few people are dealing with the psychological aspects. In my first year on tour, it is where I really first discovered this, and I spent 20 years working with many sports psychologists, doing ancient Chinese meditation, doing things to calm my mind down, to give me the freedom so I can go play and perform.
So tell me, how is it that when I see a pond and I say don't hit it in there, I hit it
You
in
hit
there?
it in there.
How can I stop that?
Well, first, you have to have an awareness that, number one, that your mind cannot determine the don't part of that question. It just locks onto the pond. So when you go to your golf swing, you hit it, you go straight to the pond. So you have to have a basic understanding of how our minds work. And let me give you an example. My rookie year on the PGA Tour, like I'm a walk-on. I'm a walk-on at Brigham Young University. Wasn't good enough to get a scholarship. The coach in 1977 says, "Look, I'm going to put you in the dorm room with this guy named Bobby Clampett." I don't know if you know who Bobby Clampett was, but he was like the Tiger Woods of the time. He was the best player in the world, the #1 collegiate. In our athletic dorm at BYU, just further down the hall, Danny Ainge and another guy named Jim McMahon. So
Wow,
that
That's so cool.
that's quite a dorm.
it was the athletic dorm, and BYU was the top 3, 4, 5 golf program in the nation, and I wanted to go there. I didn't know what a Mormon was. I just wanted to go there. So after I get through my senior year, Clampett turns pro our senior year. We win the NCAA at Stanford. We were ranked #1 the whole season. I got guys on our team, Rick Ferrer, Keith Cleardor. We had a really a remarkable team. So then I get on the PGA Tour for 1982. And in 1982, it was the last year with it used to be Monday qualifying. And the night before, Sunday nights, the night before Monday qualifying, and the tour would say, well, you're playing for 10 spots this week, or it could be 20 spots, or it could be 3 spots. My hyperactive mind would just kept going. And it just went, like, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And I had no idea that it was just, these were becoming barriers in my mind, putting expectations on myself and causing a lot of anxiety that disrupted my ability to perform. And I had, for 6 months on the PGA Tour, I had made 2 small cuts. I was failing miserably. My mind was going into, dark places type of thing, like I don't belong out here. And then I said to myself, I kept asking my question, you need to calm down. I knew that I had this hyperactive mind. And I said, and I kept asking myself that. And then a couple of weeks later, I said to myself, I answered my own question: listen to music. You've got this thing called a Walkman. Just, slam in there Led Zeppelin and listen to, Stairway to Heaven. And so I did that in the first round of the Greater Milwaukee Open. So I decided to put it on and I'd take it off, hit my shot, and before the ball would land, I'd put the headphones back on and continue on with the music. So I started doing this in the very first round. I never asked anybody if this was legal or not. And so I'm going 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, 4, 5, 6 under par. And this is the easiest thing that I have. Like, between the shots, I'm listening to music. I'm getting lost in the music. I love it. I'm coming down the last hole, 7 under par, in the most effortless round of golf, in the first round of the Greater Milwaukee Open, and I'm leading the tournament. And the officials say, come here, before you sign your scorecard, come here, we need to talk to you. What are you listening to? And are you listening to golf lessons? And I went, oh my God, I might get disqualified here. I said, no, I'm just listening to music. So they said, okay, that's within the rules of golf. So I kept doing that. Then the second round, I'm listening to music, and the expectations of leading in the first round typically cause anxiety. But every time I had a song on, whether it be Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones, it calmed me down. It disrupted all those other poor mental thoughts. So I led the tournament after the first round, the second round, the third round, all the way with 4 holes to go. I was either tied for the lead. So I inevitably finished 5th in the tournament. But what it told me, and the only thing different that I did, was I listened to music. It calmed me down. Then it allowed me for my ability to come out and play the best of my ability. So I did that for about a year. And then I got to a point where I didn't need the music was like training wheels on my bike. I was able to rid them. I was able to kind of breathe, smell the flowers, as Sam Snead used to say, between the shots, and it allowed me to gain some traction. And then over the years, the next 20 years, I dove into the psychology side of golf performance.
You talk about the Greater Milwaukee Open. That was 1982. You persevered to the point that in 1992, you win that tournament.
That's exactly right.
And not only do I want to know like what that's like when you win your first tournament, because you're not just playing against all these great pros, you're playing against yourself.
Yes.
But I found a quote and I just had to ask you about it. You finally win a tournament, and the first thing you said is that this tournament is very special to me. This is where Disco Duck debuted.
Disco Dick. Disco Dick. Not Disco Duck. Disco Dick.
Gaff, you got to read the quote right.
I got it wrong.
So in 1992, I'm back and I play every time I got to Milwaukee. Tuckaway Country Club was the golf course. I played it really well. So I had great success there. And then I got into 92. The situation earlier in 92, I won the tournament, the Deposit Guarantee Classic, that was opposite the Masters, the year Fred won the Masters. I was in Mississippi playing what they called the Mississippi Masters. and it was a satellite tour event. Money, it didn't count as a win, but the money counted as official money. So I had played earlier that year and won. So how this situation at Milwaukee, the day before, I'm playing well. I'm having a good year, best year to date, entering in the week before the Canadian Open. Us Canadians have a lot of pressure of a Canadian trying to win the Canadian Open. Nick Taylor did it a few years ago and made that question go away. But every year I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to win the Canadian Open. So I decided I'm going to Milwaukee, and the week before the Canadian Open, and the Saturday night before I left for Milwaukee, I got a call from my landlord. and I've got a wife and 3 children, 3 small children, and I couldn't afford to buy a house at this time because my family was traveling with me. So that's 5 airline tickets and 2 hotel rooms every night. So I get this notice from my landlord saying, you got to be out in 3 months. And it struck me as I got so pissed off at the situation, not at that we're leaving, but the fact that I wasn't able to put a roof over my family's head. And it motivated me to no end. I felt like I was less of a person, that I didn't have this. I didn't be able to put this roof over my head. So I said to myself, I'm going to win. I'm going to win right now. And through this desperation, I created this inspiration, and I structured in my own mind. I said, these 150 other people in the tournament, 156 players in the tournament, these 155 other people, they're in my way of me putting a roof over my family's head. And it gave me an enormous amount of inspiration. And so I said, I am going to win. Nothing is going to stop me. I'm not going to knock on the door anymore. I'm not going to ask to come in. I'm going to kick the bloody door off its hinges, and no one's going to be able to do anything about it. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, to this day, when I think of it, it still makes the hair stand up on my arms that I had the power to go do that in such a strong manner. And I won I shoot 64 in the third round, and I'm in the final group. This is on Sunday. Mark Brooks, who's the defending champion, the whole telecast was about Mark Brooks as the defending champion. He's going to do this. And I'm just saying to myself, no one gets this. No one understands what I know. And I know I'm going to win this tournament. And I went out and did it. It was one of the most surreal experiences of belief that I had that gave me this desperation to create the inspiration to win that tournament.
Well, and what you did there is sort of reflected throughout the book. You played in more than 450 PGA events. The idea of learning to stay present in the moment and not focus on the external expectations versus the pressure you were putting on yourself. You developed what you call a thought protocol. Can you explain what that looks like in simple terms?
Yes. So I created this thought protocol called Mind Track Golf. It's an app, and we're redeveloping it right now. So what happens is when you're a golfer, it doesn't mean if you're a serious golfer, if you don't have a proper thought protocol, let's say you have an unhealthy thought protocol, you're going to default to your conditioned response of wanting the result. Like you have a 5-foot putt. I want this 5-foot putt to go in the hole, and you haven't hit it yet. The fact that you're projecting forward to something that you want, that's an extrinsic result, it going in, or shooting a score or an outcome, and what it'll mean or what it won't mean. Like, say if you miss this putt, say you have a 3-foot putt and you're with your buddies and you go, oh my God, don't miss this putt because they're going to give me, it's going to be embarrassing. Those are extrinsic results. What has to happen is, and so with every single shot there, you have to, in order for it to work out right, you have to assess the shot, pick the right club versus the lie you have, the wind, how it's going to bounce when it hits the ground, all those things that are going to lead you to making a decision of the shot you're going to hit. And then you have to execute that shot. So there's 2 key performance marker on every shot: your ability to assess that shot, the right club, and then execute that shot. And those are intrinsic, those are feelings. So you grade them, and those are outcomes too, but they're intrinsic feelings. And when you do them, it makes you feel good. Like those, once in a while you bump into the zone and you hit a good shot, and when maybe you've let go because you've gotten angry after 3 putting and you just said to hell with it, and then you find that freedom, and then the circle comes around again. So it's really important to find a system. So when you look at Aaron Rai going into the final 9 holes of the PGA Championship at Aronimink, he had a system. You can see him. He wasn't getting ahead of himself. That putt on 17, that 68-foot putt on 17, he didn't react at all. He reacted very stoically. And so he had a system. And then the camera shot to him. He's closing his eyes. He's breathing. He's doing some form of meditation or calming effect. So this thought protocol that no one has taught, this is the new step to deal with, to learn to condition yourself out of these extrinsic results. And when you do that, the game, it's not going to guarantee you're going to play well for all the time, but it's going to increase those chances.
How do when you're young, you don't trust anybody but yourself a lot of times. How do you trust this as a process? Because this isn't something that you can just say to somebody and they say, okay,
Right.
I'm going to buy that. They have to believe it. And
Sure.
so how do you convince young golfers and just younger people in general to buy into this method that seems so successful?
Well, I used this system. So I use this system, and in 2000s, I'm 43 years old. I'm on the Corn Ferry Tour trying to get back to the PGA Tour. So in 2000, that's when I created this program. So after every round, I'd go back to my hotel room, and in longhand, I would put this evaluation of every single assessment, every single execution of every single shot that I hit that day. And then I was learning, and my whole consciousness was to recondition myself to detach from these results. And I started to get good at it. Every day I would do this. This new reconditioning to my new performance measuring system was my assessing and executing of the shot. And so after in 3 months, I could tell, because you have to recondition yourself out of it because you condition yourself into it. So when I went into the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, remember the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach on 2000, Tiger wins by 15?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? Okay, so
I do.
I make the cut. I shoot a horrible round in the third round. I shoot 80. Then I go out in the final round on the Sunday at Pebble Beach, and I just say, look, Tiger's doing his thing. Just let everything go and focus on these two key performance markers. And I get to the ninth hole, and I'm deep under par. I shoot 30 on the front nine. It's a U.S. Open record for all U.S. Open, a 9-hole record for all U.S. Opens at Pebble Beach. And my caddy says to me, "Do you know what you shot on the front nine?" I went, "No, I don't, because all I'm focusing is on this protocol and on this system." And he said, "You shot 30." And I went, "Wow. Okay." I gave it, and I said, at that point, the aha moment then happened when I said, I still don't care about the result. All I care about is this system, my assessment and execution. So fast forward to 2019, when I created this app, I took it to Golf Canada, and I said, I've got a product here that's going to help your objective of developing these young aspiring players, because all young aspiring players have these goals. So he said, okay, you can beta test it with our young pro squad. So there's this guy named Taylor Pendrith. You've heard of him. He was on the Canadian Tour at the time. He just got knocked off the Corn Ferry Tour. And Jared Dutoit and Hugo Bernard. These were 3 guys. So they were in Kelowna for the Canadian Tour event. So I went in front of them. They downloaded the app, and I said, guys, here's the deal. You are all great players. You can hit it. There isn't a shot you can't handle. But what's going to determine whether you make it or don't make it in professional golf, getting on the PGA Tour, it's not how you swing it, but it's the thoughts that run through your mind. So at this point, I trained them how to use the app. It was very simple. And Taylor went out in the next 7 weeks. He went on a run. He went T48, T16, second, third, win, missed cut, and then he won for his second time by 8 shots on the Canadian Tour. Then he got to the Corn Ferry Tour, and then he spent a year. He finished second on the money list. It became a COVID year. Then after they combined the 2 years, he got onto the PGA Tour. Trevor Immelman picked him as a captain's pick for the international team on the President's Cup. Taylor went on, won a PGA Tour later. So it launched him. And what I'm trying to do is, even with all young people, is grab them before they go down these mental rabbit holes, and to habituate them into a proper thought protocol. So we have this method that's called MindTrack Golf, the app, and then they do this for every single shot on the golf course in tournament golf, and then it inherently pulls you into the present moment.
You write about feeling like you didn't belong earlier in your career on the tour. Can you talk about the importance for young golfers and young people in general? Because this book isn't really just about lessons for golf, it's lessons
That's
in
right.
life, about
That's right.
confidence and belief, and for athletes or other people struggling with fear or failure, how you were able to feel like you belonged there.
Well, yeah, it wasn't. I think everyone needs to understand is that the old sayings and these cliches, and there's reasons why they're cliches. Henry Ford says, if you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't. And I spent a lot of time working with other sports psychologists, read a lot of books. Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, was huge. I met him, his publishers in Vancouver, and his book was hugely instrumental in helping me put understanding the whole concept of being in this present moment or being in the now. Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, I would read. I wouldn't read it. I would study it. The importance of decision making. So, you know, the greatest inspiration. We all fail. He talks about failure. I have no problem failing because I have learned that if it's something important to me, I will learn and I can learn those skills. He says, but I've always had a problem being a chicken and chickening out or being afraid. So if you have, an ambition to do something, you need to embrace failure and not discouraged by it. You need to understand how the basic functioning of your mind works. This is where coaches come into play. They need to teach these young kids, these young minds that are going into college. I mean, they haven't even developed yet, particularly the left side of their brain. They're logical and and side of it. But what is important where I'm talking to these NCAA coaches is you've got these kids coming in right out of high school and you've got them for 4 years or thereabout. You are responsible for how they exit those 4 years. And some of those kids, as they turn into adults, some kids turn into adults in their, freshman or junior. Some don't turn into adults till they're 28 or 30.
Some
Every
would question
kid's
whether I'm an adult yet, and
Yeah.
I'm 47.
exactly,
You beat me
exactly.
to it.
But
I beat
what
Jeff
I
to
what I want them to do is put them on a program, because if you know how pliable these young kids' minds are. They're so influenced. All they want is hit it long. All they want to do is make a gazillion dollars. All they want to do is fly in private jets like they're watching PGA Tour players today.
Why is that hard?
Well, these are things this is the rabbit hole, because those are those extrinsic results and expectations, and you've got to lay down the proper foundation. So again, let's jump back to this kid named Aaron Rai. His ecosystem with his family. He's talking about it the last few days after his win, and then you look at a guy like Rory McIlroy, and who was number one in the world versus Scottie Scheffler. Rory McIlroy struggled. Let's go back to pre-Masters 25. He hadn't won a major in 10 years. He hadn't won the Masters because his expectations of winning the Grand Slam always impeded his ability. And in 2025, when he started working with some sports psychologist, Dr. Bob Rotella, he struggled. You remember that final round? He lost the tournament 3 times that round. And then he was hitting remarkable shots around, this 7-iron on the 15th hole and this great second shot on 17, the tee shot on 18. Then he dumps a wedge into the bunker and goes into a playoff. So he's going through these emotional roller coasters, where Scottie Scheffler doesn't do that. Scottie Scheffler, he has the highest level of acceptance, meaning that even a good shot can get a good bounce, and he doesn't blow his mind over it. And you see, there are 2 examples of two of the greatest talented golfers in our game at the moment. One had struggled with it. Now that Rory won the Masters in 2025, got his career Grand Slam, very lucky to win it in 2026 the way he was driving his ball, because he was driving it into the trees, and had Scottie Scheffler made that putt on 17, it could have very well been a different ball game. But this whole aspect, even if you're professional golfers struggle with this. You watch them in these major championships, they're losing their mind on the golf course, and it's costing them dearly. So we're trying to fill that gap with because PGA Tour players, the best players in the world, still need to learn this as well.
This book is such an interesting read, and you have so much to impart. Before you got to the point where you are, did you have your tin cup moment, and where was
it? Yes, I did. I had a moment. We're playing in the Dunhill Cup, Canada versus the United States, 3-man teams, medal match play at the old course at St. Andrews. So Ray Floyd beats Dan Halderson. America has 1 point. Dave Barr beats Lanny Wadkins. So we're tied 1-1, and I'm playing O'Meara on the 71st hole, the 17th hole at the old course at St. Andrews. Do you know what? The road hole bunker.
Yeah.
I'm 3 shots in ahead of O'Meara, and I hit it into the road hole bunker. And I'm going, and I'm a good bunker player. And instead of playing conservatively and strategically, play it out sideways, play it safe, take my chances, I decide I'm going to end this match right here, right now. And I hit the best shot I possibly could hit. And it doesn't get it. It doesn't come out of my feet. It comes back, hits the lip, and I went, "Oh my God, that's the best shot I could hit." I can't. Now I'm trying to come out sideways. I'm in my feet print. I'm making a miss. I make an 8 on the hole and lose. Canada, lose the match. I let my team down. I let my country down. And then, as I was getting out of the bunker, I saw later on the telecast that night, Ben Wright, the old English voice of the BBC, because I made such a mess in the bunker. He goes, "Yes, it looks as though a couple of Shetland ponies have been mating in there." And then there's another time when at a qualifying school on the last shot, and I was losing my mind out there, and I finally broke through the wall and let go. And on the final hole, 108th hole at the PGA Tour qualifying school in 1986 at the notorious PGA West course, I tell the story in the book that I broke through the wall and became comfortably numb. My with Pink Floyd's, and every time I hear that music, I go back to that moment of getting comfortably numb, where I let go, and I truly let go, and it didn't matter if I hit the ball in the hole or in the water for a penalty. I needed to break through that wall, and these are these mental barriers that stand in the way, that if you want to break through that wall, you have to have this system in order to let go and get through it. And it's just it's a very empowering feeling as well, particularly when you don't do it with breaking through that wall with a needle prick, as the song indicates.
The new book is Change Your Perspective, Not Your Swing. It's a fascinating look at the mental side of competition, pressure, and performance, both on and off the golf course. Richard Zokol, thank you for giving us some time. Congratulations on the book, and I hope we get to talk to you again going forward.
You got my number. Give me a call anytime you want to chat further, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.